Welcome back to today's episode of the Lady Landlords Podcast. Today we are going to be talking with Brittany Campbell, the founder of Her Bank. Yes, you heard that correctly, Her Bank. So, Brittany, we're going to have to dive all into what exactly that means and the concept around that. But why don't you just start off by introducing yourself to our audience? Just tell us a little bit about who you are outside of what you do professionally.
Oh boy. Well, I am a Middle Tennessee native. So Nashville is my hometown area. I'm in my mid 40s. And if you are seeing me outside of work, you will probably see me doing some low energy things with my dog and my boyfriend. Pretty obsessed with my dog Gertie. She's like my daughter. So no children, really enjoy kind of hopping around the local spots here, doing just the normal mid 40s women things. I was just joking about how different this chapter is in my life of like what weekends look like now versus when they did in my mid 20s. My boyfriend and I have a little garden and spend weekends doing that. And I've traded the platform heels for garden Crocs. And so,
As another 40-year-old woman with no kids, I hear you. I actually have been thinking a lot about that. I got together with one of my best friends from childhood a couple of days ago, and he and I were talking about like the college days, the high school days, and like all of that. And now we're like, yeah, it's like 7:30. I think I should go home now. Like,
yeah,
like
the sun's going
getting
down.
late.
I'm
So
ready for my pajamas.
right. So I love that. So okay. So you and I are very much on the same page. And honestly, I do a lot of the landscaping for my rental properties. So I would be doing the exact same thing. That's usually what my weekends look like too. But thank you very much for being here. I appreciate this. We were introduced through another contact, also through Nashville, Tiffany Napper, who was actually on one of our other Lady Landlords podcast episodes. And when we were talking about who would be a good fit to come and talk on the show, she was just like, "Oh, well, you have to know Brittany. She started a bank for women." And I was like, "Oh my God, you need to introduce me to this person." So fill me in. How did you even get into just banking in general? How did you even get into that industry?
Well, it was really an opportunity that came because my grandfather was a community banker who decided to start a bank the year I graduated from high school. Super convenient that I was of working age. So I kind of started in the summer after I graduated, really not setting my scope on banking as being a career for me. But it did give me an opportunity to make a little bit of money while I was trying to be a college student and pay for gas and have some responsibilities. He was very adamant about being busy. So whether I was in some sort of extracurricular or a job or whatever, he is still a very important figure in my life. But he really gave me that opportunity to get started. And I worked while I was in college as they were trying to build the bank and get chartered and do all of those things. So, really, my experience, and I think what has been building blocks for me through my career is that I did kind of whatever they asked me to do or needed at the time. So I got some experiences doing your traditional banker roles of
Mhm.
teller, customer service, a receptionist, did some odd and end things that built my experience, gave me a really good landscape of different areas of the bank. But when I was in college, I was a marketing major. So really, as I was going through that process, was really interested in more of that lane of storytelling and branding and all of those more creative ends of things. But having that experience, being able to be with the customers, understanding our employees and kind of understanding our culture and how what we do as bankers to contribute to our customers' lives, economic development, all of those kind of things has really made me very passionate about what I do and working with not only our staff, but working with customers. So I'm not in the day to day world of customer
Yeah.
relationships, but having that 360 view of what it looks like between the relationship of the banker and the customer is something that I'm really passionate about. I know that we will be getting into more of that, but definitely help to bring about some inspiration for the brand.
Interesting. That's funny. One of my actual first jobs back when I was in high school was actually working as a teller at a bank. I used to work the drive-through in
Yeah.
like the afternoons, like after school.
You were
Um,
busy.
I was very busy. I gotta say, it was probably the most amount of like phone numbers I ever got from men. I felt like they would like send back their like funds in their checking or whatever, and they would always have to call me with phone numbers on it. It was just something that I always remember from that job being like, I don't think they realized how young I was at that point in time.
Well, it's a great way to check a box that you don't get to on online dating. Like, show me your numbers. Okay, here's the receipt for the balance of my checking account. I don't know.
Not to go down a total rabbit hole, but one of the women that was a teller at the bank, there was a guy that came through that I had a crush on, and he sent me his phone number, and I was like, "Yeah, I got like his phone number." And then she was like, "No, no, 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 no. We do not call them until we look up their information." And I was like, "Also, I don't think you understand what you're teaching me at like, 14, 15 years old." But so I love that that was also that introduction. I actually loved working at the bank. It was really, really cool. So now you're in this industry here, and it sounds like you identified really two things. One, really where your passion is and the things that you really enjoy, which I love when women are able to do that. But two, it also seems like you kind of identified a little bit of a gap in the services, in the process that you were kind of seeing there. Fill me in about kind of what you were seeing in the industry at that point in time that you were like, oh, there's got to be a different way.
Yeah, really, it took the pandemic to bring that to the surface. And that was really just because when the pandemic first hit, Legends Bank is really a business bank at heart. We work with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses. That's really our love language. And that period of time where the government stepped in to support this paycheck protection program, there were a lot of people that had a lot of questions. We as bankers also had a lot of questions, and we're navigating that in lockstep with our customers and these businesses. We kept running into people that were not our customers that were coming to us because they could not get a hold of their banks, like maybe a
Yeah.
lot bigger institutions. And I just happen to be in a community of a co-working space for women where we were trying to be a resource as a member to women that own their own business, as well as women that were like, I've lost my job as a result of COVID. And I'm also a breadwinner for either my household or help support our family. So I'm thinking about starting this business because I really don't have an option at this point. And going that process and trying to help and be a resource and asking some questions really sort of illuminated number one, that community and local banks really do have a beautiful place to support entrepreneurs in a way that maybe bigger banks don't. And number two, women have a way that they want to experience people who deal with their money, whether it be their bank or there's, accountant, CPA, an attorney, whatever, anybody that touches their business or their money. And they also have negative experiences that they attach to money in certain types of business, whether that be banking or otherwise. So those few factors in there, I just felt like number one, I work with a lot of experienced bankers that are women. And I wonder what that looks like in this environment of women wanting to support more women in business, what that would look like if we teamed up to really help to support these women that were looking for more support. So that's really kind of the catalyst that got that in my head and in my heart to try to figure out what we needed to do to be a part of that solution.
Right. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur that also works with a large commercial bank at that point in time, I feel like it's always interesting because I feel like you hear them say, oh, well, we're looking for the relationship. Oh, we're here to support you. And then you kind of go to them and they're like, great, so let's open your account. And then you kind of don't hear from them ever again. And it's like, where was that relationship you were talking about? Right. And I feel like there's so much more that not only just a relationship, but really just understanding kind of what needs are in business, in a growing business, starting off sometimes as a solopreneur, as you're able to bring in other people on the team, as you're able to increase what income looks like, all of those different things. It'd be really, really nice to be able to have those conversations about what that looks like with that bank. How are we able to grow? How are we able to move forward? What do you feel that you're able to support female entrepreneurs in that's just different than kind of what else is out there?
I think for us is number one, it was really important that the team that was providing the customer support for women were both experienced in banking and a wide range of their experience and also life experience, because I do think it's important that we meet the women where they're at in their life, because we do have so much integration between what happens in our personal life versus what happens in business. And for a lot of people, including myself, that's really hard to separate. And to be able to have compassionate conversations that women that are coming to us about their business, I already know that they have put so many hours and so much heart and a lot of times blood, sweat, tears, literally
Yeah.
into this concept that they want. And a lot of times, confidence can be broken so easily from just having one negative conversation that feels like they haven't been seen, heard, or really all of that kind of being drilled down to these very black and white numbers that don't necessarily represent their dreams, their hopes, their vision, all of that. And so when I talk about holistic approaches to things, it's really just being able to pair women with other women who can have compassionate conversations that help support. Like, we're not going to be able to always approve all of the things. It is not always a green light for everything we do, unfortunately. But the reality is that sometimes there's not enough capital. Sometimes there's really bad credit. Sometimes there are things that really make it difficult for us to be able to make those approvals. So it's like, what are those conversations? What are those resources? I think that's where we try as her bank to be a little bit more bolstering for supporting women that need other resources to help get them where they want to go. Our goal is to make sure that, I'm going to say this, it's not always about closing the deal. We want your business. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. We
Right.
wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want you as a customer. But I will say that we want you to be successful and we want you to have the tools to be successful. So, whether or not that means the deal works or not, I do think at the end of the day, we hope you have a great experience with us in the conversations that we're having, so that down the road, you're either saying really great things about us and send people our way, or you come back to us when you do have what you need and let us support you in a bigger or different way. So it is a challenge when you talk about customer relationships, because as you grow, it just gets more challenging. And when you have to have difficult conversations with people that really are wanting something that you can't give them, it does become a little bit of a challenge. We wanted to face that head on and see what that could look like, and really use the feedback from the women that we're working with to help figure out where we need to go and grow.
What this would really kind of turn into. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
What industry would you say that most of the entrepreneurs that come to you are in?
Really, it's a mixed bag. I mean, we have everything from event planners to estheticians. So a lot of service industry,
Okay.
a lot more solopreneurs and partnerships. We do some personal business, but like I said, we really market and target towards women owned businesses. And if we can manage the complexities of what you need as a business, we certainly will want you to try to keep everything in one place and make it easy. I do love looking at the 30,000-foot view of what our customer base looks like right now. And it is very diverse. And that's really exciting, because that just means that the community that we are building creates additional resources to sort of be this space for women to sort of use each other. So when we do try to have events that bring, our customers in, or our professional partners that we've worked with and things like that, really into a space where they can utilize each other, we're doing our best to integrate that into places where women have easier access to those things. But again, those are building blocks that you just have to sort of put them in whenever you can take the time to really get that in one place and make sure it's going to be viable for the group that you're providing it to. But we do try to do it on an individual basis and really take a customized approach to what you need may not be the thing that the next person needs. So really try to tailor that with each individual person.
Right, and kind of meet them where they are kind of in that business at
Exactly.
that point in time.
Mhm.
What types of services do people tend to come to you for?
Kind of twofold. So since we do work with businesses, it's really how they manage their money. So a lot of
Okay.
them need point of sale. They need digital solutions that help them be able to manage their money really easy and at their fingertips. And then you have the financing end where they're looking for maybe a line of credit or they're looking for some funds to help support the growth of their business. We don't do a lot of startups only because that is a whole different ball of wax, but we have a lot of really great resources and good relationships with other groups that do help support more of the startup end.
Okay, gotcha. So thinking like real estate investors, for most of our ladies, they tend to be looking at, I think probably the name of the game here is really just capital, right? How are we funding deals? How are we able to purchase other properties? How are we able to grow and scale? Leaving the line of credit, the home equity line of credit, leaving that stuff aside or refinancing, right? Because that's a very different space about like what we're talking about here. Is that something that being able to get lines of credit, be able to have that capital, be able to kind of scale portfolios, is that something that her bank would still be able to support?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the same process that we're going to go through with any individual that's looking to get a loan of any kind. So
Right.
it's just really trying to figure out what the goal is at the end of the day and then figuring out what you have collateral wise, getting those bank statements, getting your tax returns, all those like fun little checklist things to really kind of go over it because a lot of times what happens, even though I'm not necessarily on that end of it, I do a lot of
Right.
vetting through talking with our lenders and trying to talk to the customer too to try to figure out like in the middle, how do we make this work better? Is because there's usually this reactive approach. I know what I need and this is what I need right now. And then they go have the conversation and we are trying to ask a lot of questions to figure out not only the short term for what you're wanting, but like long term, what does that look like? Come to the same conclusion, it definitely leaves some disappointed people. And that's what we really would like love to remove. I'm also learning in the process of like, how do we be more proactive educating people on how to get prepared and to have the conversations, know what questions are going to be asked, and try to get those
Mhm.
things together and think through that kind of through the lens of the lender or through the lens of whoever you're coming to try to help us help you. Maybe having some conversations earlier than when you actually need it may be a really great tip.
Right. And honestly, that's something that we actually talk about when we are talking specifically about mortgage funding and those types of ideas. That it's really important to actually start that relationship with a banker, to have those conversations up early. Because I can't tell you how often I'll see somebody say, "No, I'm not ready to talk to your lender." Okay, now I am. And then they go and they're like, actually, there's a thing on your credit report. We're not going to be able to help you. Or, hey, your credit's nowhere where it needs to be. Or your savings are nowhere where it needs to be. Or, great, you have the income, but you also have this huge amount of debt that we have to address. It's always been better to have that conversation sooner than later so you can get that information so you can be aware of what steps you're going to have to take and kind of do some of that pre-planning.
Right.
Um,
Because, like, to your point, it's a two-way street. We can do so much, but we don't know. We can't read your mind on what you want. So you have to come to us so that we can unpack that together. If someone comes in, has a ding on credit, has too much debt, has all these things that are preventing them to get what they want, those are things that take months to years to recover from. It's not
right.
that you can't, but at least you can have a conversation to put you on a path and have some realistic expectations and also a plan to get you to where you need. So I sit in that same space of like maybe subconsciously, I don't want to know the answer because it's not going to be what I want. But most of the time, the confidence comes in actually knowing the thing so that I can do the right things and take the next steps and get what I want.
Right.
And that comes with, like you said, building those relationships and being more comfortable with the person that you're asking the questions to so that when you come back, you guys are ready to rock and roll with, and then the next time you have an ask or the next time you have a need, you can pick up that phone much quicker, send that email much quicker because you already know the person that you're dealing with.
Get the direction, get the idea of really where we stand, and we need to talk to the professionals and the people that we're going to be going to really kind of get that advice and make sure that we're moving in the right direction of where we need to be. I hate to see, like I said, when women say like for, a year, like, oh, I've really worked on my credit score. Now I'm finally ready. And then it's like, nope, you have a bunch of debt you didn't think about, or you make good income, but it's not the income that you really need for this type of loan. Do you usually look for people to come to you that have LLCs established, or do you work with sole proprietors as well?
Oh, yeah. We'll work with sole proprietors. And sometimes we're on the front end before they've even established an EIN or gone through that process. So we
Okay.
are happy to be on whatever end of that where they are on establishing their business, whether they're LLC, however they're structured. We just have different paperwork for however you're set up as an entity.
Right. Because that's something that most of our ladies are doing as investors as well, starting out as a sole proprietor, then as they end up scaling, as they grow to move into those LLCs and then be looking to change a little bit of the way that they're doing business and
Yep.
running moving forward. So that
Yep.
makes perfect sense that you're there. What is one thing that you really wish that women, business owners, entrepreneurs knew before they came to you?
That it's okay not to know everything, because I do think that I think particularly women, we feel like we have to show up knowing the things, being able to do all the things. And a lot of times we are doing so much. And so we put ourselves on the back burner. We don't necessarily make taking care of certain things like your banking and taking proactive steps because we do have a lot of other things going all the time. And I think a lot of things that we have experienced with why someone would delay having a conversation with us is because they didn't feel ready in some shape or form. Either they feel like they didn't have enough information, they
Hmm.
didn't feel like they had enough in their bank account. I know that that's wild, or didn't have the right credit score, but I'm like, look, a conversation is free. Like, we would rather you come to us at an early stage of something without any knowledge to help at least start the building blocks of getting you to where you feel really comfortable about whatever that money goal is or financial thing you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is just if I could just break the barriers down
Right.
between what they really want and the conversation they're willing to have to get to that thing.
And once again, if you can't have that conversation, if you can't hear them out or at least hear their idea, because I feel like I can see from the other side, people kind of saying, well, I don't necessarily know exactly what I need. So how can I come to you and share my situation? But I think on the contrary, that's actually why they need you to say, well, these are the things that maybe we'll be able to do, maybe not now, but these would be how we can support you in the future and why it sounds like it's better to have that conversation sooner than later.
Right. And if you're a business person, these are also really good spaces for other professional partners to come in and help. Like, business coaches are there to help bring a level of clarity and help to ask a lot of questions that could dive into some money related things, could help to get you very clear of what you want and what you're willing to ask for. And then, step into all of the other pieces of the puzzle. So, I really do think for us is if we are the first stop to having a conversation, that's great. And then we help to figure out what other resources are needed to support you on your journey. But I also think that women and business and money don't necessarily always equate to the bank.
Right.
And that there are other people that do really amazing work helping women figure out how to structure their operations or how to structure their business or how to do these things that will help save them money or help them work more efficiently. All of those things do tie to the bottom line to some degree. But I think it's just in general being open to knowing where your resources are, having a place where you can go and ask those questions and feel really confident that you have a team of people, kind of like a personal board of directors that are there to support all these different things. Even if I just need like a creative, like, hey, I need to brainstorm with somebody on something. I really do think that there's so much power in having trusted women in your life or resources that will support different aspects of you and your business.
And honestly, I feel like sometimes that comes back to sometimes as women, we definitely do this as real estate investors. We want to know all the answers, right? We want to
Yes.
have all of the information before we move forward, right? And really, to me, where I feel like that actually boils down to tends to sometimes be more of that confidence issue, right? Well,
Mhm.
we need all of the information so we can be confident to have that conversation, to ask the right questions, to say the right words, use the right acronyms. And honestly, I try to recommend to all the time to our Lady Landlords members not to wait for that because we're not going to know all the things. And honestly, I don't want to know all the things. I want to know the people that know all of the things,
Amen.
right? Right. Like that's not something that I get a lot, especially being a real estate investor, a lot of people ask other investors within the group, like if I'm a realtor, if I ever want, if I always say, I'm like, I will never, I do not ever want to be a realtor. That honestly is not a career path that has ever crossed my mind that I don't ever want to go towards. And people will say, oh, but like it'll help you with like your deals, you could do this. I'm like, no, I really believe in having the experts be the experts at what the experts do. I want to be able to pick up my phone and say, wait, I have a banking question. I know who to call about this.
Yep.
I have a future projections question. I got to call this person. Hey, I need to know about a market. I can call this person. I want to have those people around me. But my goal is not to know all of the information because one, you can't learn everything, right? I can't learn everything about real estate, let alone everything about real estate and banking and business and marketing and all these other things. But I want to really get to a point where I know the right people that I can really contact because in that way I can feel secure in saying, well, she's the expert in this. That's why I can ask very open-ended questions that I can learn as the CEO of my business, have to be able to make those decisions and understand what I am doing moving forward. But I really want my team to be able to support me and be the experts in where they are experts.
Yep.
I feel like we need to see more of that. So what's vision for her bank?
Well, like you said, I think seeing it through the lens of a pilot of we are on a learning journey together with our customers because we started this out of COVID. It was such a weird environment. And now we're kind of seeing what is happening in the business landscape as we have inflation, as we have everything sort of coming back to normal and what that looks like. We're trying to also figure out how to be a bigger support system and how we grow, really wanting to figure out what that looks like to grow a team so that we can support more women in the footprint that we're in. And so right now, sustainable growth and where we're at, I'm really happy with because for me, that means our team gets to spend dedicated time. It is very conversational, it's very relational. I would love to maintain that as much as possible because
Yeah.
that's really what we feel we do really well, which means we're not managing 1,000. We are managing a sizable number to support women in our community. And so I have such a hard time with this question because I'm so in the present moment with what we're doing right now, which feels so good that, when I have women that tearfully say, this 15 to 20-minute conversation that I have held back for so long, you guys just took 15 minutes with me, listened to me, and helped me get questions answered about my credit or whatever. And it has taken so much of a weight off of me thinking that we've empowered somebody in 15 minutes over 5 years worth of shame and whatever versus helping someone start their business and now looking back on that 3 years later and seeing they're thriving and they're growing. I want more of that. And that may be the most generic, worst answer, but that just really honestly is what we're being able to do in this just little vision that I thought I had for just trying to support other women has really just been so rewarding. And I just want more of it. And I don't really know what that looks like at this stage.
Right, but I feel like you're in it. You're
Mhm.
working really just so closely with some of these women and are really giving them the financial support, the education, the structure, like so many different like pieces to it. To me, it almost sounds like really what you're building is going to be a lot more dictated by the women that you're working with, right? And hearing what their needs are.
Yeah.
I feel like you're the visionary that's then going to say, cool, I keep hearing women that, we've now got onto this stage, but now I'm hearing that they kind of want this. Let's
Yes.
go and build that.
Yes. I totally operate like a thermometer. It's like I want to test the temperature of where we're at and, figure out how we address certain symptoms or
Yeah.
continue to do things that support women in their lifestyles, not just in their business and being more of the bank, but I also like we're other women too. We want to be a part of conversations that affect their life in general, not just supporting their business. So just trying to be very intentional about bringing programs and bringing education and bringing other people into conversations with us that support women beyond the bank
Mhm.
aspect of things too. So that's really kind of the fun part of what I get to do with the brand. And
Yeah.
then my team is amazing. I have worked with the ladies that are part of her bank for anywhere from 12 to 22 years. We have an amazing relationship internally together. We have a lot of trust and a lot of respect for one another. And so that makes me feel really confident when I get to make those referrals and are out and about to talk about what we do, is because I know the level of care that they have for their customers is like they would for, a close friend or family member. And so as long as we can keep doing that and people feel good about the service they're receiving and the impacts that we're making, I just want to figure out how to clone all of that and make it into and expand it.
I think that's great. I love that. Okay. If last question I guess I have for you is, now being on a podcast filled with female entrepreneurs, which all real estate investors are, there's one piece of advice, one message that you can kind of give them about building business and really having that relationship with that bank.
If you love the bank that you're with and you have a person, that's fantastic. If you don't, I would encourage finding that person. If that's through asking other friends, asking other women that are also investors that are kind of doing what you're doing, use your connections and use your resources to find that person, because confidence is such a big player in everything that we do and the decisions that we're going to make and the conversations we're going to have. So I would just say finding trusted resources is probably my number one piece of advice, because anytime you're in doubt, anything that you need, you want to be able to feel like you can access that in the moment and feel really good about who you're talking to.
I love that. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate
Oh, you're
that.
so welcome.
I'm really hoping that women will go out, start making those networking connections, start really finding the right support and the right team around them. We talk about that a
Mhm.
lot on this podcast within real estate investing in general, right? Having your realtor, having your lender, those types of things, but really having that person on your banking side for that
Mhm.
continued help, not just a mortgage, but really that continued support throughout scaling your business is incredibly important. So thank you. I appreciate you just sharing your vision for not just her bank, but really for female entrepreneurs in general with us. So thank you for being here today. For all of our listeners out there, do please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords Podcast. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. And also, if you enjoyed today's episode, do make sure to leave a 5-star review. Reviews help ensure that other women are able to find us and then get the support that they are looking for on their real estate investing journey. See you next week for the next episode of the Lady Landlords Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords Podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.